Bienvenue à tous, nous sommes à l'Ibis Golf Club West Palm Beach en Floride et je suis en compagnie de Martine Hall. Martine, bonjour.
Bonjour mon ami, ça va?
Ça va très très bien. Thank you again to spend time with us for my little show in France.
My pleasure.
The Serie Birdie. You know that we follow you every day in France. You have a big fan club in France.
Sacre bleu, allez les bleus.
Voilà. And I'm going to go in the question immediately,
Sure.
but just before I want to tell you that you are a person for me very important, and I think for a lot of people more than you think, because you inspire us, and we want to play golf when we see you.
Wow.
And we want to improve in our teaching work because of you.
Thank you very
And
much.
thanks to you. So thank you for
that is very flattering. I mean, that's not why I do any of this stuff. I mean, I'm just someone who I fell in love with golf when I was a little boy, and I never found it easy. I always find golf très difficile. And so it's just been my journey, but I'm glad you feel that way about the work
yes,
I do.
We are a lot to feel this, and you can of course see that my English is much better than last year.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. So I have 5 questions for you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, dokie.
And the first question is, what is for you the big difference, if there is a difference for you, between teaching a man and teaching a woman, or coaching?
Well, you know, look, it's a good question. It's a question I get asked on a fairly frequent basis. Some things are different, but a lot of things are the same. The way the club comes into the ball, which I think is everything in golf, doesn't matter whether you're madame or monsieur. Mm-hmm. It does not matter. You know, whether you hit the ball in the middle of the club, it doesn't matter whether you're man or lady. There's some things you have to do. If you're trying to produce a certain ball flight, the club has to move in a particular way. So in that respect, I would say I don't think there's any difference between men and women in how you have to get them to learn to apply the ball to the club. And for me, the biggest thing is getting people to understand how the club needs to come into the ball to hit good shots, and people with poor shots don't understand that. Now, on the physical side, I think there are some differences. Usually, not every time, but usually ladies will be stronger in the legs and not as strong in the upper body. And generally men will tend to be stronger in the upper body. Strong in the legs too. But I think because of that, for ladies, I would lean towards, notwithstanding getting the club on the ball correctly, but I would lean towards a swing that has good leg action and very good hand and arm action.
Okay.
For the men who are a bit stronger, again I would use the leg action, but I might want to try and get the upper body, the core, the trunk, the torso, thorax, call it what you might, a little bit more involved. I think that's very difficult for the ladies, because they're just, no matter how hard they work out at the gym, they can get stronger, no doubt. But can they be as strong as a male tour pro from here to here? I don't think so. That's my view, and you know, some Olympian lady might prove me wrong, but in general, ladies are not so strong in the upper body.
In the way you communicate, also maybe there is some difference. You don't talk to a man the same way as you talk to a woman when you teach golf. On communication.
Do you know, I don't.
You don't think about this?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't think I do that differently. I think I know in golf, everybody finds this game difficult.
Yes.
Everybody needs encouragement. I think as a teacher, your certainty has to be greater than the student's uncertainty. I think that's absolutely vital. I think you have to help men or ladies understand the learning process. The learning process is not quick and it's not easy, but it is predictable. If you take certain steps, you can get there.
Great. The second question, Martin, is we talked about this last year. You insist with me about efficiency, but effective. I remember for you it was more important to be effective on a golf course. So
yeah.
Let's talk about the golf course. When you observe the pro, on a golf course, you can, you know, and you can see, because they think with their note, with their caddy, that they think from, when they play a hole, they think from the green to the tee. When we see our amateurs, they think from the tee to the green. It's different. So it's easy to see. Now let's come back on the techniques. So tactique, strategy, solid swing, like Niklas told you so many years. On the swing, it's different. What is for you the significant point or sequence which is very, very different from an amateur to a pro?
Yeah, well that's to me that's a very certain one. I think I was saying before we started filming there that some things we're never quite sure about in golf, some things we are very sure about in golf. This is I'm very sure about this, very certain about this one. The better the player, the more the sequence, the downswing sequence is the weight shift goes, then the hips go, then the shoulders go, then the arms go, and finally, last, goes the club head. I always say to people, you want the hips to be first and fast, and you want the club to be late and last. And I think the less good the player, the more they're trying to swing the head end of the club too early. I know the viewers, most of the viewers watching this will be listening in French, but I hope they get this. You could either think, you can think club head, or you can think club handle or the grip. And I think too many people at the amateur level, they get to the top and they feel, my goodness, that club head's so far away from the ball, I must get that club head to the ball. And I think the better the player, the more they do the opposite. They don't rush the club head to the ball. They would tend to bring the handle to the ball. My favorite drill for that I got from a man called Mike Austin. It's simple, but it's really good. My favorite drill by far is to just take the club in the lead hand, put the trail hand in front of the lead arm, and then just go to the top and holding my left arm with my right, just learn to advance the arms, but do it with a weight shift, do it with a shift, do it with a rotation, do it with a tilt. So I think the downswing sequence is shift, rotate, and then swing.
Okay, next question, Martin, is of course you know that I'm one of your big fans in France, watching you every day, and with a lot of guests, and I observe that you have more guests than before.
Yes, yeah, we do. Yeah.
More. Okay, see, I see everything. I saw you with Woznam, I saw you with Mickelson, I saw you with all the best. For you, it's a big source of information. And you are a pro, so you can be, of course, a great bridge between this kind of player and all the people you teach golf. But when these players, these great players, show how they swing, mastering their techniques, show how they play, show how they think, show how they move so fast, do you think that a normal player, amateur, in front of his TV can take an advantage of what they say? First?
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
And
no.
So
c'est impossible.
I can ask you the same question in another way. Is it better to learn short game with you or with Dale Pels, or to learn short game with Phil Mickelson?
Well, so here's what I think about that. It's a really good question you just asked me. And I have had the chance to be with, you know, people who've won the Masters, people who've won the Open, Patrick Harrington, Woosnam, Mickelson, Graham McDowell, Langer, Goosen. I mean, lots and lots and lots of great players. And you certainly cannot ignore what people of that level say. You've got to listen to what they say. They've won championships. But I don't think you have to naturally adopt what they say. Because here's the thing with great players. They know what they think, they know what they feel to do to make it work. but they actually don't know what they do. They think they do one thing and they do another. They have a feel. I'll give you a perfect example. Henrik Stenson, when he won the Open Championship at Royal Troon in 2016, he played maybe one of the greatest rounds we've ever, it might be the greatest round in Open Championship history, that last round he played at Royal Troon. And his swing thought for the week was to get the club head out in front of him. Get that club, and he's demonstrating, get the club head out in front of him and get his shoulders going. Now, that was what he felt he did. And he would tell people to do that. There is a very large problem with that. If people do that, they're going to hit the ball out of the heel and to the left. Now, for him, it was a helpful feel because it would be a correction for coming too much from the inside. So my thinking with a Mickelson, with a Stenson, with any of those players is listen to what they say. Think if you are you afflicted with the same injury? You know, if someone's a very, very good player, listening to what Stenson or Langer or someone says might be very good. But I would say listen to what they say. I would then say look at what they do. Look on video. Do they do what they say they do? Is it visible? Because most of the time they don't. And then think, is it an appropriate thought for you? Now, most of the time, I think most tour pros are trying really hard to never hook the ball again. Most amateurs are trying really hard to never slice the ball again. And that's a problem. It's a problem. So, you know, one man's meat is another man's poison, as we always said in England growing up. So, I mean, I love to pick the brains of someone like Mickelson or McDowell or Montgomery or whoever it is. And I certainly love hearing about how they dealt with playing under pressure and their thoughts of it. But, you know, I mean, they might say, well, when I play in Pro-Ams, I see people hold the club tight and they just need to loosen the grip. And I think of the words of Hank Haney, who I really like. Hank said, you know, if you've got a rotten swing and you hold it tight, and now you hold it with a light grip, now you've just got a rotten swing with a light grip. It's still a rotten swing. So I think for most people, it's fascinating to listen to the tour pros, but not very helpful. So I think, you know, professionals such as yourself, hopefully me, the people that we would influence, we would know the right medicine to give to the person who's in front of us.
Yes, I was surprised when you talk with Dave Pels, the time you spend just on the ball position.
Yeah, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, Dave is very, very big on the. Dave thinks that. Now, this is so interesting. So, Dave Pels is Phil Mickelson's short game teacher and has been for a long time. Dave Pels is adamant you should put the ball in the middle of the stance.
Yes.
Phil Mickelson said, wherever you put it, don't put it in the middle of the stance. Okay. Now, go figure that one out. Mickelson has his way. Dave Pels is a great teacher, and Pels' thing is born of teaching, as we have done, thousands and thousands and thousands of normal mortals, normal golfers. Mickelson could probably stand on one leg with one hand with his eyes closed and a glass of wine in the other hand and still hit that flip shot. He's just so talented. He could do anything.
Quatrième question, fourth questions. Success in golf. Now we leave our friend amateurs and let's reach a high level of player. Success for them. Is it a question of level or is it a question of hard work?
Well, you know, look, we know it's a combination of how hard you work and talent. We know that. I think a lot of people have misunderstood the work done by Anders Ericsson, the 10,000 hours, you know, to be an expert.
Yes.
He did not mean, I mean, he wrote a follow-up book. He did not mean that if you put 10,000 hours in, you'll be an expert. What he meant was, you've got to put at least 10,000 hours in to be an expert, and those 10,000 hours need to be what he called deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is hard, it's not fun, it's going against your natural tendencies. So I don't think it's just hard work. I do think this, though. I think we live in an age of technology where you can utilize the technology. You know, the launch monitors, the foresight, the 3D technology, the KVS, the gears. The video is better than it's ever been. The force plate, sand balance slab, swing catalyst, whichever you use. And I think we know more now than ever what the best players do. So we can close the gap. I think years ago, it would be natural talent always won. But now, if someone's got this much natural talent and they work this hard, yes, they can catch someone who's got this much talent but doesn't work hard. I did a clinic here last year with John Daly, and he was great. It was great fun to be with. Mm-hmm. There's a man who had this much talent, maybe this much talent, and he worked this hard. Yes. And then there are other people. You look at Bernhard Langer now, who's just, he's unbelievable. He's like he's Peter Pan of golf. Now, when he started, we actually started at the same time, and he wasn't really any better than me when we started. I would say when he started, obviously he had talent, but Langer had this much talent, and he has worked so hard for so long, refining his skills. I think one thing about improving, though, is, as Dr. Rob Neal said to me, improvement comes from number of correct repetitions. It doesn't come from repetitions. We're on the range at Ibis. In about 30 minutes, we're going to have 100 golfers over there, yeah, and there's going to be balls going everywhere, mm-hmm, at a rapid rate. Yes. And most of them will not be improving. Mm-hmm. So it's number of correct repetitions. 50 balls hit correctly, thoughtfully, diligently, is much better than 500 balls hit without thinking. So I think, I mean, hard work matters, but you better be digging in the right place. You know, Ben Hogan said that the secret is in the dirt. You have to dig it out. Here's what I now know, though. In this day and age, we can say the secret's still in the dirt, but because of what we know, I can say the treasure is buried somewhere in here. I don't have to give you a field 1,000 acres and say, go find the treasure. We know the treasure is somewhere in there. So there's a lot less digging to be done.
We said in French, le hard work wins on talent when talent hasn't hard work.
Yes.
But there is, Martin, a little, we are, now, before I was very on hard work in my coaching. Hard work, if you work very hard and of course correctly on a driving range, finally one day you will play well. Now I'm changed a little bit. If I go running every day on a stadium, I'm not going to win the Olympic game because I cannot reach, yeah, a certain level, yeah, even if I train hard. So now I'm more with, I think I'm more with a minimum of level. Yeah. And then, of course, this famous hard work. Martin, before the 90s, I don't know if you agree with this exactly date, but we're gonna say the 90s, we had a lot of great players. I can say there were more stylists. There was a lot of different swing, and few people able to win big tournament, we're gonna say. And now things has changed. Nowadays, golf becomes very athletic. There are, of course, still some stylists, of course, but it's more the war of golf. There are more gladiators, if I want to say things simple. It's more physique, it's more preparation, and more people can win. So the question is, what period do you prefer to watch on TV when you take time for be a spectator and not an actor? What is the period you prefer? And nowadays, so how many persons are able to win when a tournament starts?
Well, I'm going to answer that second question first. I think there's a lot more people who can win these days than there was 30 years ago, a lot more. And I think that's because training is better. I think the work you've done in France, hopefully the work I've done around the world, the work David Ledbetter's done and many other great teachers, Butch Harmon, the knowledge is much greater than it was. The ability to study the swing is much greater than it was. And so I think people are better. We know how to practice better. We know how to use our time better. people stay physically in better shape, diet, exercise, things of that nature. So I think there are far more good players than there used to be. So that's why I think it's probably more difficult to win now than it was 30 years ago. As for my favourite time of watching golf, I think for me, because it was my time when I was playing, sort of, you know, 1985 to 1995, I like watching Sandy Lyle, I like watching Ian Woosnam, I like watching Langer. Sam Torrance always makes me smile. And then of course Jack Nicklaus, because I worked for Jack for 7 years, just watching Jack. I think my two great favourites that have had the most, probably three people have had the most impact on me with how I try and teach people to play golf, and that's Jack Nicklaus, Tom Watson and Annika Sorenstam. And you know, I've been fortunate enough to spend time with each of those, and the three of them are very special people. They give back to the game, and I think people would be surprised that they work very, very hard, much harder than people would know. But people would be surprised how simple they keep their golf swing. Now they're immensely talented, so it's easy to do that. But for Tom Watson or for Jack Nicklaus, how simple they keep it. So I think the message from me there would be, it's a really difficult game. You have to get good information from the right sources like this. But when it's time to go and play, try and use relatively simple swing thoughts.
In France, we talk a lot about the score, because when we watch the TV, 15 under, 20 under, so much difference between the game of a player on Sunday, of course. But sometimes people said we have to change things. And me, I answer, you know, like in football, the ball is the same for everybody, so we don't care about. But when I answer in their sense, I just say, to me, I don't know if you agree, it's because of the ball. The ball has too much power. And before the ball, you remember the balata? You play a balata now, you lose 30 meters.
Yeah.
And do we have to stronger the game? And yes or not? And for me, if we stronger the game, there is two possibilities: touch the ball or change the axe of the tee box, of the black box, because we cannot extend a golf course. It's impossible. That's my answer. I don't know if it's smart or.
Well, no, I agree with you. I think the golf ball does go a lot farther than it did 30 years ago, and I agree. For the most part, courses in England, a lot of courses in America, especially in the northeast, courses in France, you can't add another 100 meters to the hole. I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen though. I don't think the manufacturers will allow us to sort of, I'd call, roll the ball back. And if you can't lengthen the course, you can't lengthen the course. I think we have to understand that, you know, people like Brooks Koepka, Dustin Johnson, people of that nature, Jason Day, they hit the ball a prolific distance. They're very strong, they train very hard, and you know, when people watch Brooks Koepka hit a golf ball or Dustin Johnson, and then they think they're going to do the same when they go out, it would be like watching Rafael Nadal or Roger Federer and think you're going to go and play tennis like them. I mean, you just can't do it. Yes. So I think I have my sort of parting thought today would be one formula I have for frustration. I got a long time ago, because we can all get frustrated with this game. Frustration is formula. We could write this on a whiteboard. Frustration is expectations minus reality. If you have big expectations but the reality is, you know, you haven't practiced, you're not strong enough, then you're going to be frustrated. So I think having appropriate expectations is how we can enjoy this game.
Today I will do what others want, so tomorrow I can do what others can't.
Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice, I know it's
good.
Your favorite, and it
really
was
is.
My favorite also for long time. I was in Kennedy Space Center before coming to see you, and they have another saying, it's failure is not an option. Do you think it's good for golf or for putting?
I think it's good for motivation.
Yes.
I think it's very good for motivation. I think the only problem with that is failure is inevitable in golf, but it's good for motivation. I'll give you one other to think about though until next year,
Yes.
and that is hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life.
Okay, we're
whether
gonna
it's practicing or anything else. Hard choices, make the hard choices, life will be easy.
We're going to
take
keep
the
it.
easy choices.
We're going to keep it, Martin, for 1 year till next year. If you are agree, of course, to see me again.
I would happy to.
You can say something to French people. They listen to you. And
au revoir, mes amis. I will see you next year, I hope.
thank you very much, Martin.
My pleasure.
And continue to inspire us and continue to be exactly like you are. Don't change anything, please.
Well, I don't think I could if I wanted to. I am what I am. That's who I am.
Bravo.
Thank you very much.
Bravo.
Nice to be with you.
Bravo. Thank you.
Not very good, is it?
No, no.
Not very good. No. Complete overhaul.
You need some improvement.
New grip, new stance. No good. I can't work with this.